We are joined by Coach Fleck following Western Michigan's 34-10 victory over Illinois. First time in program history, the Broncos have beaten 2 Power 5 opponents in the same year. Now to talk about the Illinois win and moving on to Georgia Southern is Coach Fleck.
Yeah, appreciate everybody coming. Thanks for being here. It's nice to see all of you. Obviously a big win for our program. How big? 1-0 big. That's about it. And we're moving on to Georgia Southern, a team that's beat us by 26 last season, which I think everybody's familiar with. And I think everybody was kind of shocked somewhat when that happened. But the people that weren't shocked were us. We know how good they are. Then they went on to beat the champions of our league by 30-some in a bowl game. So, and that was Bowling Green. So I'm sure everybody knows who they are by now. They got a lot of people back doing a lot of the same stuff, doing some different things. But we got to work it out for us. But proud of the way our kids played against Illinois. Proud of their how. But there was a lot of mistakes that we have to be able to clean up. A lot when you get back in that film room. So we had an elite practice today. We got after it and cleaned up a lot of those mistakes. But again, we have to play better, and we will play better. So with that, I'll open it for questions.
Coach, last year they ran for like 400 and something yards, and we ran for 25.
Yeah, after 400 really doesn't matter, does it?
Right,
Something,
exactly.
right? After 400.
Well, and then last week against Illinois, we dominated Illinois on the ground. What are the differences between the two games in the running game?
Well, in our culture, in our program, Al, it's very simple. Last year has nothing to do with this year. Nothing. The only thing it has to do with is learning from your past. That's it. Right? It's a different team. They had a different team. It was a different year. It was a different time in our culture, different time in their culture, so on and so forth. So to be able to compare things from last year to this year and then compare it to a Big Ten team, I don't necessarily see the comparisons. But I will say that we're better up front. We are playing better collectively, cohesively. I think we've simplified some things offensively to make it better. And I think Coach Chirac has done a tremendous job of highlighting our strengths on offense. We don't do a ton, but we do enough for our players to be effective. But again, to compare those two, I don't know if I can necessarily compare those two because it's two complete different years. All I'll say is that, like I said before, is that you can't really compare them, if that makes any sense. So.
Okay. When you came to town, you talked about putting Western's program on the national stage. And we're starting to see a lot of that. We're seeing you on ESPN, and we're seeing us in the national rankings. How do you keep that kind of stuff out of the players' minds and keep them focused?
Yeah, well, the result really doesn't matter in our culture. I mean, that sounds crazy in college football, but it's about the process. We're never going to arrive. Right? This program will never arrive and then stop, and then nobody comes to work the next day, and it just goes away. Right? This program is going to continue to grow higher. And it's going to continue to be about the journey, about the process, about taking today, changing it, making it better, and then when we get to tomorrow, we got to be better tomorrow than we were today. That's all it is, and that's going to continue to happen. It's the same message I said when all of us were 1-11, everybody. And it's the same message we have now that we're 1-0 in the Illini season, and now 0-0 in the Georgia Southern season. It's the same message. It's about the journey. It's about the process. We have got to get better. We have got to continue to change our best and keep focused on the process. Keep focused on rowing the boat. And I think our players, that's our culture. They understand that, and I think they're doing that on a daily basis. I told you before, we patted ourselves on the back. We gave ourselves thumbs up back to ourselves, pat ourselves on the thighs, rubbed our hair together, sat there and gave everything somebody's going to tell them to do. And we did that on our own and said, okay, no more. Now we're looking ahead. Now we're 0-0 to Georgia Southern. And taking them as one-game seasons is very important in our culture. And I think our players have really understood that. They've learned from their past, never ignored it. They've embraced their past, all their struggles, all their failing, and helped them grow. But you can't rest on your laurels either. You've got to continue to change your best, and we've got to play better football, Al. We've got to play better football. And I know that's hard when you guys just see a final score. I see everything from special teams, from offense to defense, how we play. What did we miss? Schematically, what could we do better? What techniques and fundamentals aren't we doing correctly? So we got all that stuff, again, corrected today in practice and on Sunday's practice, but we got to keep moving the needle forward. You got to keep rowing the boat. We've got to continue to get better and change our best on a daily basis.
Nick Buckley of the Battle Creek Inquirer.
You don't have to introduce yourself every time, Nick. But
they
you know
need
what?
it for the website.
Okay.
But
Nick, everybody.
Time of possession. What do you make of that stat? Like all stats, it can be misleading at times, but
we're looking at two of the programs that led the country in that last couple of years.
Well, it's misleading because if you're playing a team like Baylor or a TCU and they score every 56 seconds, right? You can hold the ball for 40 minutes and get beat by 70 when you play teams like that. Okay, so it is a little misleading. How we play the game we're going to do what we have to do to win the game, right? We're going to do what we have to do, and that's all part of game planning. Sometimes you're correct, sometimes you're not. But the style of offense we have and whatever's working in that particular day, that's what we're going to really lean on. There's been times, like Al said, we didn't run the ball very well at Georgia Southern last year. Well, then we had to pass the ball. There's times you might not think you're going to be able to run the ball very well for 287 yards against a Big Ten team or 200 yards against a Big Ten team. And then you do, and then it sets everything else up. So you kind of go into the plan as we're going to do this, but we have contingency plans for this, 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 and this. But time of possession is very important, especially in the second half when, that's a little bit more of Jim Tressel in me. When you get ahead, rarely did people from Jim Tressel's tree and from the way he did things, do they come back on that. That's when you have a lead, you got to protect that lead, and you got to keep building on it, but you also have to use time in your favor. And, we're just going to keep changing our best and get better at that every day. But time of possession is very important to us. Maybe not for other people in the country, but it's important to us. Also, turnovers are a big part of that. You can hold the ball for 40 minutes of the game and get blown out by 40 if you turn the ball over. So it's one key statistic, but it's not every statistic. It's that statistic plus 25 others that kind of mold its way into winning a football game. But we all know the ball is the number one thing.
Now, is 3 weeks enough body of work where you feel like you really know what an opponent can do and you know what your team can do? Is this kind of who you guys are?
What do you mean, like who are we, or do we know? I know our team up to this point, and I know we have to get better, and I know we have a lot of things to work on. I see the issues. As a head coach, you are a problem solver. You get brought issues to solve the issues. So rarely do you ever sit there and say, "Wow, that was pretty awesome." You enjoy it for a few minutes, few hours, and then you're already on to the next one because you are a problem solver. And everybody comes to you for that, including the football team and what you have to be able to fix and get everybody where they need to be to get those things fixed. So I really like our football team, Nick. I really do. I really, really enjoy coaching these players. I really enjoy coaching these young men, taking them from young men and making them men. I really enjoy that part. I enjoy our staff. I enjoy how they work. But I think you're always finding out who you are from week to week. You really are. We found out we're good enough to beat Illinois. That was it. Now we'll find out if we're good enough to beat Georgia Southern. There's all different types of challenges when you have a new opponent.
You mentioned last year, this year, but as a head coach, there's a lot of guys that are back from the team that got beat up pretty good by this team you're seeing Saturday last year. Do you use that as motivation? Hey, this team that you saw 1 year ago beat you badly.
If you could name specifically who was on the team that got beat badly and how they got beat badly, I could maybe answer it a little bit more. But here's what I'll say is because they're completely different players. 84 didn't play in the game. I could talk about, Robert Spillane didn't play in the game. It's a completely different season. And that's why I talked about earlier, they have to understand their past. As a culture, we got beat, right? We got beat. Western Michigan got blown out. But that has nothing to do with this year. Same thing with them. They're not sitting there going, hey, we beat these guys by 26. We're good. They're not thinking that either. So every year presents its own challenges. For us, we had a lot of challenges last year that we were dealing with injuries and depth charts and depth and all the other things, and they blew us out of the stadium. We didn't play particularly well either, right? But usually when you get blown out, you're probably not going to play very well. We've got to take that experience, just like we did when we got beat by 60 at Iowa, just like we did when we were 1-11, just like we did from winning a bowl game. You take all those experiences and it gets you to now. And then what you do with now, that's your choice. And we get to decide what we want to do with that now. But one thing I know about this team, they're going to keep their oar in the water. They remember last year. They know it. We talked about it today, but I then told them it has nothing to do with this year. Completely different set of depth charts, starters, different people in different spots, players playing different positions, more people added to the mix, more experience, and they would say the same thing.
Coach, you talked a little earlier about turnovers. After the first two games last year, Zach had 5 picks. This year, nothing, no fumbles lost. Can you talk about why that's changed? I know the ball's the program, but is it just...
You answered the question yourself. The ball is the program, Al. And the ball was the program at 1-11. That wasn't something we just thought of this year. The ball was the program, but we weren't mature enough to hold on to the football. Zach gets sacked like any other quarterback. But what he does with the football, he protects the football when he gets sacked. Now, I'm not saying he's always never going to, never fumble again. But the premium, when you become very mature, doing what you have to do. You have to protect the football. You have to get turnovers on defense. You have to flip field position and use the ball to your advantage on special teams. Becomes what you really want to do. It becomes important to you, not just that's what we say. It truly becomes important to you internally. And I think that's where our football team has gotten. Just because we haven't turned the ball over doesn't mean, hey, we're not going to have any turnovers. But the ball is the program, and we expect not to. And we expected that 3 years ago. But we didn't have the maturity to be able to have that type of experience, things to learn from. You're only as good as your past experiences and how you've taken those and grown. You either failed and you quit and now you're a failure, or you failed and grown and now you're a success. The only difference between people that actually make it and become a success are people that don't make it quit. They have everything it takes like everybody else. They just stop doing it. They just had enough. Where the people that actually do it one more time, Al, they do it 2 more times. They just don't give up on it. Those are the people that become successful. And I think you're starting to see it with the ball with us. They've learned from failing. Nobody's learned in this program from going on, 48-game winning streaks. We've had to learn the absolute hard way. And that doesn't promise you anything, but it gives us the best opportunity to be successful. And the ball is the program. That's a huge statement we've had and the motto we've had since we walked in the door. But I think they're finally understanding it's becoming them. One thing to say it's you, but another thing for it to become you. It's another thing to tell someone you love them, right? Well, are you going to put a ring on that finger or not? Everybody knows that. You're going to get down on one knee and ask her to marry her, or you're not going to do that. So you can tell her how much you like her as much as you want, but are you going to marry her or not? Choices, right? Choices. And it's become part of us.
Okay, can you comment? Levante is a little banged up. Can you comment on his situation and your injury outlook right now?
Yeah, we're protecting him a little bit right now. I'm not sure if he'll play or not. That depends. But if he doesn't play, then guys like Davon Tucker, Fabian Johnson, that's one thing at that position. We've got 5 running backs that can play. Leo Okwoji. So we have guys behind, Jarvion and obviously Jamari if he's not able to go. But we'll continue to evaluate him as we get closer to game time.
How is Georgia Southern different under Coach Summers?
You know what? I will say that one thing I'll say is their entire football team is more experienced. They got a lot of seniors on the football team, got a lot of guys back from last year. They've added some guys. They've got a linebacker transfer from Florida State who's an absolute freak on defense. They fly around, they hit, and they hit. Relentless. And that hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten better under Coach Summers. He's a younger guy. He's got a lot of energy. We're very similar in that type of way. He comes from a big-time football pedigree. He's really worked his way up, done a tremendous job, and he's created a culture there. Now, that's a very hard place to create a culture because it's got so much tradition, but he's put his own stamp on it. You can see it on film. Then offensively, you know what they've got. They've got those 2 quarterbacks back, as Al said and Brian said, who bludgeoned us last year. And I remember those 2 very, very, very well. They've got, running backs, kind of like us, but they got Breida, who's, a Heisman Trophy candidate and all those things, set all those records. He's back. Got the offensive line. They got wide receiver. They've got people all over the place, guys. This is one of the most, if not the most talented team we've played up to date. That's not coach talk. That's a compliment to them. Their punter hasn't had a punt returned on them past like 4 yards all year. Incredible hang time. They are very good at every single position. That is why when you look at how did they win national championships, tons of tradition. Baptizing people in the river, baptizing the field. We went down there. That's tradition. That's tradition. And then when they joined FBS, they blew everybody out in their first year going undefeated. Can't even win the championship because they're not eligible to go to a bowl game. They won the championship, but they're not even eligible to go to a bowl game. Then the next year they come in, they beat us. They blow out our conference champion by 30-some points in the bowl game. This is one of the best teams we'll face the entire year, let alone up into this point. So we've got a lot of work to do, And but Coach Summers done a tremendous job. You can tell he took that program over and then completely took it to another level.
Coach, right now, most football coaches will say we want to run the ball and stop the run. And right now, if you look at the Mid-American Conference statistics, Western Michigan leads the MAC in rushing and leads the MAC in rush defense. What do you think that says about your team right now?
RTB, right? Run the ball. Right? SRTB, right? Stop running the ball on defense, right? So, but I will say this, is that I think Illinois kind of helps those statistics just because 3 yards rushing, it kind of helps everything into perspective. As from a coach perspective, when when the stats aren't great, you don't put a lot of stock in them. You can't put a lot of stock in the stats when they're good. But I will say that we are better defensively than we've been. I think we are. Jimmy Williams, our defensive line coach, David Duggan, our linebacker coach, obviously Coach Pinkham has been here since I've been here, have really done a tremendous job of bringing those players up. Now remember, most of our freshmen that have played have been on defense. We only lose basically 2 starters, 3 starters, 3 guys that actually play on defense. Right? Everybody's back another year or 2 more years. We're still young on that, developing that group. But I think they're more comfortable in the system. They play harder. They play smarter. They have a ton of experience. When we're looking at where we didn't stop the run the last few years, we were playing freshmen, sophomores, guys that didn't have any experience. And now those guys, again, drawing from your past to create your future. And I think that's one of the major factors because we played some really good rushing football teams already. This one is a different animal. This one, that's all they really do is rush the football, and they're very, very talented and very good at it.
Coach, the home opener, we saw 24,000 people at Waldo Stadium. Georgia Southern, obviously, when they're at home, they have an unbelievable atmosphere. Talk about what it means for the home crowd to support the Broncos on Saturday night.
Oh, we just need everybody to come out. I think that, from where we were 3.5 years ago to where we are now, and 2.5 years ago being probably the worst team in college football, to where we are now, this is what we said we wanted in Kalamazoo. We wanted to have national attention, which we've got national attention. Now, we have ADS syndrome. We ain't done squat. Period. We haven't. But this is what we've said we've wanted here. And we said this is what you wanted in Kalamazoo. Now we've got to be able to react on that. When we were 1-11, people said, yeah, well, when you win, we'll come back. Well, I wanted the people that just wanted to row the boat right away. Just come to the game just to row the boat, right? Let's build it from the ground up. Let's dig even further down. But people say, oh, when you win, we'll come back. When you win, you come back. Well, here we go. We're starting to win. Not only that, we're starting to win on a national stage. Not only just a bowl game and a top 25 win and so on and so all the 21 nevers and now the nevers this year, the first this year, but now we're winning on a national type level. So this is the type of advantage we can have, and it's wonderful. You come out and watch, go watch, and go to Ann Arbor and East Lansing in the daytime. Go get your daytime fix, and then come to us at night. You can get a double header. It'll be perfect. So all those people that go over there, they can come over and just drive to Kalamazoo. Even if you're not a fan of Western Michigan, come over and watch another football game. Watch the daytime game there, drive down here, whichever fan, whether you're a Wolverine or you're a Sparty, that's fine. You can all be Broncos. So we will take you. So drive on down, come on down, and see the night game.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it, row the boat.
Now joined by senior offensive lineman Taylor Moton, who's up for the Outland Trophy Award. Taylor, talk about the team's 3-0 start.
Yeah, it's great. Elite. Really excited where we're at right now. But right now we're starting a new season this week with Georgia Southern, and that's really where we're putting our focus on. It's great to have the start we did, and we'll learn from it. But for now, we're gearing up, getting ready for Georgia Southern.
So you're looking ahead, but you still got to feel good the way you guys have pushed around some Big Ten opponents so far this year. How much confidence does that give you? I mean, is it a boost compared to where you were at the beginning of the year?
It is. We're very confident. I feel like we've always been confident all year. And from now on to the season, Coach Fleck talked about even today, we're going to have to balance between humble and confident. And, the team that can have the better balance of that will end up being the better team that day. And so really that's where we're at. We're very confident, but at the same time, we know that if we don't bring our A game, anybody can beat us any week. And that's, the same with Georgia Southern this week.
What do you take away from film of Georgia Southern's front seven?
It's very, very good front seven. They have their whole defensive line coming back, so it'll be a good challenge for us. Two very stout defensive tackles and good defensive ends. A new scheme this year for them, but we're accepting the challenge. We're excited for it. Got ready today, and just throughout the week we'll feel more and more comfortable.
How much are guys thinking about and/or talking about what happened against them last year as you get ready for this week?
Yes, I mean it's like Coach Fleck said, it's a completely new team this year, but we learned from our mistakes and we learned from our past, and so it builds a crack on our shoulder, but at the same time, it's a new year, and we're just really focusing on getting better week by week and, learning from our past.
You played guard last year because we moved some people around, but we had, Willie and Chooks and John and you all on that same offensive line last year. With you moving out to tackle now, talk about the change in the position, number one, and just talk about the new guys on the line and how they've kind of worked into the front line.
Well, big difference between guard and tackle is dealing with the defensive end a lot more than a defensive tackle, and it's like a completely different skill set between the two. In the tackle, pass protection, you're more out in the island than you are at guard. So that's one of the biggest differences between the two. Other than that, it's the same scheme. And me personally, I played it my freshman and my sophomore year at tackle, so it wasn't too much of an adjustment for me. But we bring in one new offensive lineman from this year that we didn't have last year, Luke Jariga, great offensive lineman, getting better every week. Been confident with him, seeing him grow from last year as a redshirt through the spring, through winter conditioning, through the summer, and just seeing and even getting better week by week still today. And I'm very excited and confident with him. And, having a guy like John Kenoy back at center, being the decisive decision maker up front. And left guard Jackson Day, great veteran, senior, very technically sound. Chakuma Corfor, another guy getting better every week. A lot of upside with him. He's getting better week by week, and I'm excited to see as an offensive line where we're going.
Has the game slowed down for you, as you're one of the older guys, and just, even though you're moving to a new position, and just having that experience, does the game look different now?
Yes, the game does look a little different than it did my freshman year. That does come with experience and learning from my past and, being more comfortable with the system we're in now. And, just like when you've been in that moment so many times, you feel more and more comfortable with it. But, that excitement, it never leaves. I'm more excited now than I ever have been week after week, so that's definitely how I'm feeling about things.
And week 4 now, you guys are kind of more into the routine. You guys all have classes and school, you got that routine, like football routine. Does it feel like you guys are settling in to your routine and obviously off to
I believe so. I can just speak for myself. I feel like I've been settled in. I graduated, so I'm not taking as many classes now. It gives me more time to focus on football. And I can't speak for the rest of the guys, but just seeing them, they're ready to work every day, and I can see that they're all dialed in on just getting better every day and moving towards beating Georgia Southern this week. So I know that there's not too many distractions with all the things. I feel like as an offensive line at least, we're definitely settled in.
You guys lead the MAC in rushing. As an offensive line, just how much pride do you take in that, and how much do you talk about that's something you want to do? Because obviously establishing the run is huge for you guys.
I do take a lot of pride in that. The offensive line does. It is an elite, place that we're at right now with that. But Coach Fleck talks about changing our best, and that's what we got to do. So, what we did last week isn't good enough for this week. So we just got to build on what we did last week and the week before that and the week before that, and just get better and better. So, we're never going to be satisfied with it. We're just going to keep growing from past experiences.
Taylor, when you got here from Okemos, you were, as I recall, about 290, and you look to be about 330 now. So you put 40 pounds on that same 6'5" frame. Where'd you put it? And are you still as graceful as you were in high school?
I feel just about as graceful. I did put on like 30, 35 pounds since high school, but that's a credit to Coach Nickel and their strength staff for getting us better from when they got here to where I'm at now. The whole offensive line together, we're all getting a lot stronger. All the squats are going up, bench. Me, that's where I think a lot of it's going is in my legs and my body, like my torso, because my bench is going up, and like my whole body, I feel like I'm stronger, and that's because of the strength staff and the great things they've done through the whole offseason, getting us prepared.
I'm going to give you a two-parter here. Number one, of course, you played with Willie last year, and he had a shot in the pros, and he probably still will have a shot in the pros. But do you aspire to that? Number one, I know you're focused on this year, but is that something you aspire to, number one? And number two, talk about the love that you guys just all, the whole entire team really seems to really support each other and care for each other. Talk about how important that is to your success.
Well, yeah. Right now, I mean, me personally, I'm just focusing on this week and getting better, and I feel like the rest on the road will take care of itself. So right now, I'm just focusing on beating Georgia Southern first and foremost. But in the second part to it, yeah, it's great. Like saying where we're at 4 or 5 years ago to where we're at now, we're so much closer. You know, I can more talk about the offensive line and how tight we are, even with Willie Beaver's gone, elite football player, great guy on and off the field. But you know, even with him leaving, we still are getting tighter and tighter every year, every day. And I can, you know, just seeing like the wide receivers, they're really close. Quarterbacks, running backs, you know, like even like with the defense, like we're all like a lot closer than we ever have been. I feel like that's a big key to our success.
And Taylor, a couple weeks ago, there was 24,000 people in the stands. What do you tell your fellow students to, you know, on campus to get them to come out and support you guys on Saturday night?
Well, I tell them where we're at as a football team. I tell them, you know, it's really important to us to see the, you know, a packed house at the boatyard, and you know, I just like to tell them like where we're going, what we're accomplishing this year. And a lot of people, you know, word's already out. I don't feel like I have to say too much anymore about where we're at and what we've accomplished so far. And you know, people ask me about, you know, how it feels to beat the Big Ten teams, whatever. I just tell them, hey, come on out to Georgia Southern and see what we got. You know, because I'm just focusing on this week. That's what's most important. Because Coach Fleck brings it, or talks about how every week is a different season. So we went 1-0 in the Illini season, and now we're trying to go 1-0 in the Georgia Southern Eagles season. So that's where we're at with that.
Thanks, man.